And we are live on the Lock and Load show, simulcasting on gun channels and across the interwebs and across the universe. Lock and Load show, guns, freedom, and the truth until dawn. And it's been one of those weeks. This is my first time using Google Chrome ever because audio wasn't happening on Internet Explorer, and it's a long story. But so the camera doesn't work on Google Chrome, but the audio does. Anyway, it's been a very interesting week. Today's prepper tip for the day is get yourself an armored vehicle, and here's a screen share of one. They were saying they don't go very fast for some reason because of the transmission or something. This has a new Allison transmission on it, but
it's not really made for going fast.
Yeah, it's made for just, but this is if you didn't hear when we were talking about it, this is an armored cab on this one.
Oh.
Armored glass, armored cab, armored edge compartment. It's a Bosnian armor upgrade.
So it's going to be slower then.
It's
got the same engine. I don't know what engine.
Look, it's an armored vehicle. You know, those aren't easy to come by. It's only $24,000. So it's like, seems cheap to me for an armored vehicle, but it might be handy if for the apocalypse, which is the topic for tonight, instant apocalypse. And there was a few things that have been happening that caused me to come up with that program concept for tonight's chat. Oklahoma's been in and out. He's having some internet problems. And if anybody saw his video that he posted a little earlier today, he talks about his medical issues, his consult. So add him to your prayers for. They're still eliminating some possibilities before they're doing a measure twice, cut once. So they're making sure that they know what they're doing before they start cutting. Hopefully he'll make it back. He said he was having some internet issues. That's common for him. So the camera doesn't work. First thing I noticed, talking about everybody's medical issues, was let me punch this back up and just switch the page. First thing that I noticed was this Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Candida auris, a drug-resistant germ that spreads in healthcare facilities. This is spreading very rapidly. It's a fungus, and it's resistant to all three antifungal medicines, and it's spreading rapidly. So this is the CDC page for it. It's called Candida auris, and basically, my understanding of it is, from what I've read about it so far, is that it makes people susceptible to other infections and viruses, and and it can be quite lethal. So it's something you at least need to be aware of. It's a fungus. All right, and the other one that I noticed so that's like one of those instant apocalypse things that you at least need to know about. I saw somebody around my condo just wearing, I guess for Asian people from Asia, which was where she was from, was wearing full face masks around is more normal in like China or Japan, and so it's not considered weird. But I guess in in America, it kind of is. You don't see too much of that, but maybe this was something that people was concerned about. Anyway, the next thing that came up was this one for all you metal fanatics. The Italian. Well, I'll just read this one. 2 weeks ago, someone out of the blue, ECB President Mario Draghi issued an odd statement confirming that the European Central Bank needs to approve any operation for foreign reserves of the Eurozone countries, including gold and large foreign currency holdings. And there's two quotes. The ECB shall approve both operations and foreign reserve assets with the NCBs, national central banks, and member states And so he made that statement to two Italian members of the European Parliament. I won't get to Brexit yet, but maybe later. At that time, it didn't seem noticeable for any reason other than its peculiar timing. But now things are starting to make more sense as the Wall Street Journal reports that Italy's ruling populace pushed ahead this week with efforts to seize control of the central bank and its gold reserves. So, I mean, the lead of this article is, it belongs to the people, not the bankers. Italy moves to seize gold from the central bank. So we're talking about over 2,500 metric tons of gold. That's going to be seized. It's like a revolutionary asset seizure, basically. I mean, the banks, okay, the people are pissed because their accounts have basically the banks are insolvent. The bonds aren't worth anything. The stock isn't worth anything, and their account isn't worth anything. And the money that they had is gone. So the government, instead of, they're not going to get the money back to the account holders. They're going to spend it on shit that they want to spend it on, but they're going to seize the gold. So complaining that hundreds of thousands of small individual investors lost billions of dollars after several Italian banks failed in recent years, the anti-establishment Five Star Movement and the Nationalist League depict the central bank as a symbol of technocratic elite aloof from the needs of ordinary Italians. We need, quote, we need to change the course at the Bank of Italy if we think about what happened in the last years, said Deputy Prime Minister Luigi Di Maio, leader of the Five Star Movement. So it's a good thing for us that, or I'm saying, speaking facetiously, that all the metal prices are set by derivatives controlled by Goldman Sachs and Steve Mnuchin at the at the Treasury Department, and they can just set the price of gold and silver by pushing buttons on their laptop. And I guess they're better at using their laptop than I am, because it wasn't me. It was fucking Google Chrome. It's the only browser that works right now on this laptop. But anyway, back to the subject of the show. Let's see. And this week saw Italian lawmakers from Five Star Movement asking Parliament to pass two draft laws. One law would instruct the central bank's owners, most of them private banks, to sell their shares to the Italian Treasury at prices from the 1930s. So so basically, this is the 1930s means after the 1929 crash. So so basically they want to sell they want to pay pennies for all their shares of stock. I mean, because the banks, no stock was worth anything in the 1930s after the 1929 crash. Let's see, I'm going to just check on my page here. All right, looks like Chrome is still working. So got so many pages up. All right, so this is one of the things, let's see, since all the commodities are controlled by the COMEX and regulated by the CTFC, that's why I in the video description of this video, maybe after the show or tomorrow morning or whatever, if you don't know how derivatives work and or what the CFTC is supposed to do, I've got a Frontline. I've got a link to a Frontline documentary on the CFTC, and basically why it doesn't work. It's because the Fed beat up somebody. Somebody tried to regulate derivatives, and Alan Greenspan and Larry Summers during the Reagan administration just beat the shit out of her, and she just resigned because basically the Congress says you're not allowed to do anything to the CFTC, and they have appointed people ever since the lady who actually tried to do something that basically do nothing. And And it's worth, if you're confused as to what derivatives are, I'll just say watch that link, and it'll kind of explain to you what derivatives are. And it's a bet on a bet on a bet on a bet with like hundreds of trillions of dollars at stake, which is just a massive amount of money. And there's no regulations to it because during the Reagan, actually, it was during the Clinton administration, actually, and we're talking Alan Greenspan and Larry Summers, and that was during the dot-com bubble, when any internet stock with .com on its name doubled every other week. So, like when AOL, basically ridiculous company whose email I still have, was increasing in value, doubling in value every other week for no reason other than .com, right? .com, right? And so it's no surprise what happened in 2007 and 2008. And it also discusses long-term capital management, and which was like the first basic derivative I'm trying to find the right word, reckoning of, it's basically it's like a bunch of bookies bets that nobody knows what they mean, or it's written down in a language that nobody understands, or something like Latin. And the entire world economy is basically, it's like right now, everyone at the Federal Reserve and in anything that has to do with the economy, it's like they're walking through a minefield, and they're trying to do it very carefully, because if they know they put their foot wrong, the world economy will just blow up. And that's what I'm trying to say about instant apocalypse. It's that when something goes wrong, it's like going to happen when you're sleeping, and by the time you wake up, it'll be too late. It'll probably be too late before you even go to sleep, because when the price of every commodity in the world is just manipulated by somebody with a computer at Goldman Sachs or the Treasury Department, and the regulators are banned from regulating. It's an insane system. So you can wake up and everything is just screwed up one morning. It's like, and I tried to explain to somebody, I'm not to mention no names, but when people tell me, like, okay, I'm in this place that's really safe and I will never, ever bug out. I'm not talking about Dusty, I'm talking about somebody else. And I will never, ever bust out. I just try to explain to them, please understand where I'm coming from. Because my family was in Warsaw. We were Jewish, and Poland was overrun by the Nazis. So, I mean, we had to bug out. And I was watching on the Independent Film Channel the other day, the original movie Godzilla. And if you just, right at the beginning title, you hear these gigantic footsteps of doom, which is Godzilla walking, like boom, 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 boom. And then you hear him yell. I mean, so if Godzilla starts, you see him walking towards you over the horizon. I mean, are you going to stay there and, put up a welcome Godzilla sign, hoping that, beyond hope, that he can read English and know that you're cheering for him, because you don't know how to say go Godzilla in Japanese and write that down on a bedsheet or something? And are you going to wait for him to step on you or blast you with his lightning breath? I mean, so it's just where I'm coming from. Just from my history, is just different than, I guess, a lot of other people. But I guess there's a lot of things that can happen instantly, whether it's a disease, Godzilla, an economic issue, because there's so many things that you will have warning. I mean, if the Yellowstone supervolcano blows up, you'll have a warning. There'll be earthquakes for weeks before the fucking thing blows up. And it won't be just out of the blue. But some of these economy things are just out of the blue. And until I probably bet that nobody knew about that one particular fungus that's resistant to all the Candida auris. Did you know about it before I told you about it, that it's spreading like wildfire through the medical facilities? Well, I guess I keep my ears open, so I might hear things, but at least the CDC told me so I could tell you. But there's just certain things that are going to happen instantly. And so the whole thing with the seizure of gold is like the government of Italy is seizing 2,500 metric tons of gold. It's funny that that's not going to affect the gold prices at all, because it's funny because everything is so manipulated. The price is not, nor if we had a free market, that would affect the prices. But gold went up $4 or something today. It's like no big thing. And anyway, so it's just one of those things. I don't know if it's just my own weird philosophy for prepping, but all right. We were talking earlier in the pre-chat about the whole California magazine thing, and I guess because I got like a dozen emails from companies that were sent out emails literally targeting California, saying we can send all our magazines to California now. You can get 30-round rifle mags, Glock mags, 50-round Glock 9mm drum magazine. But I guess the freedom lasted for 72 hours, and now it's been revoked or stayed until an appeal is heard. But the bad news was the bump stock. Everybody has to turn in their bump stocks or something, and I guess they're appealing to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court isn't going to stay the turn in. So for now, a bump stock is a machine gun. It's ridiculously stupid, but that's our government. All right. So there's a couple other things I wanted to mention that when I was out having a drink the other night, I ran into a fellow, and he seemed to think that U.S. Citizens weren't entitled to any of the Bill of Rights because of something the Pope said in the 1300s or 1400s, which was the Doctrine of Discovery, which basically, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on why that's wrong, but the Doctrine of Discovery was something that where the Pope said that the European countries, if they planted their flag on some place other than Europe, they could claim it for their sovereign country. And basically the indigenous people had no rights to actually claim it as their land. And so therefore, because the Europeans did that, and the Americans were Europeans, then therefore the Bill of Rights doesn't matter. It's like, no, that would be like cancer. That would be two wrongs don't make a right. Okay. And people, it's one of the cases that are noteworthy that the Supreme Court cited the Doctrine of Discovery, which I'm not sure how it was written or mentioned in the Constitution, but apparently Justice Marshall in the if anybody has ever heard of the Trail of Tears, the case, the court case based on that was the Cherokee Nation versus the state of Georgia, and basically said because of the Discovery Doctrine, the Cherokee people had no rights because they're not really Americans, and so that led to them being force marched in the dead of winter on what's known as the Trail of Tears off of their land, so that Georgia could auction off the Cherokee people's land who had lived there for generations to a bunch of white carpetbaggers, for lack of a better word. And they just the military just marched them off the land. And in the original ruling, Justice Marshall said about the Supreme Court, this is not the tribunal to redress the past or prevent the future. So basically what he was saying is that this is a morally wrong decision, but we're following the law, okay, as written. And what happened is the case was appealed, which I don't even know how they did that, because you can't appeal a case. But here's what happened. Because you can't, there's no appeal from the Supreme Court. But what happened was, it's like a parallel case came up, because the military didn't just march the Indians. The Cherokee had some white people who were activists on behalf of the Cherokee people who thought this was wrong. And so the military arrested the white people and marched them down the Trail of Tears. And the white people got a lawyer, and they filed a parallel case. And then when they tried to do to white people what they did to the Indians, then the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. And so, and it was, I mean, basically they said judgment reversed. It's what they said. And so, but what my thought was that, okay, two wrongs do not make a right. Just because the discovery, I mean, what the Pope said in 1300 doesn't mean shit to me, but I understand it was wrong. And if it was somehow adopted into the Constitution somewhere, I don't know where, but I mean, two wrongs don't make it right. You aren't going to cancel out the Bill of Rights, because I consider the Bill of Rights to be a pretty good document. And I kind of like my Bill of Rights the way it is. And so just because you think that that was wrong doesn't mean you get to cancel out the Bill of Rights because part of something in the Constitution was wrong. I mean, I'm not even sure where that is in the Constitution about the discovery doctrine, or just that was just some common law from English law that somehow got worked in case law. I mean, I don't know, but it's just.
Did you tell him to go back to Europe?
No. What I said was, "Fuck the governor of Hawaii." This is a quote. I said, "Fuck the governor. Fuck Governor Ige. Fuck Lieutenant Governor Green, and fuck the Pope." And I said it so loud that the bartender, gave me the tab and said, "This is a family restaurant." Basically, I just paid my bill and left after that. And that was at Quinn's. So but this was after Winona left. The old hag took over, and this old hag bartender lady, and she makes good drinks, but she didn't like me saying "fuck the Pope." So I don't see what it had to do with Second Amendment rights or the Bill of Rights, or why somebody would say that. I mean, he wasn't from Europe. I mean, the guy that I was talking to, but I think he was somehow into the rights of the native people and how they've gotten screwed over. And I'm not unsympathetic, but that doesn't mean the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to for Americans. I mean, it does. And and the whole thing is, look, two wrongs don't make a right. It's like, because native people have been screwed over by everyone doesn't mean that you go out and then just, let's see who we can screw over now because we don't like what happened to us. I mean, I can go back further before the papacy and go back to like the Third Jewish Revolt in Jerusalem. And I'm pissed at Italy that I should be getting free Chianti for life or something, because after the basically what happened is the Jews, the proconsul for Rome in Jerusalem wanted to build a golden statue of the Roman god Jupiter on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and he also banned circumcisions, and the Jews says, hey, screw you, and they killed the governor. There was a revolt, and all the Jews, they wiped out like multiple Roman legions. And so the Emperor Hadrian, I think, of Rome, if I don't get my emperors mixed up, whoever the emperor was, he sent like, okay, Judea was in revolt. So he sent down like 10 or 12 Roman legions to put down the revolt. They killed all the Jews, but that wasn't enough because for him, having like a bunch of Roman legions wiped out was something he couldn't tolerate as a new emperor. So he banned Judaism from being practiced for anywhere in the known civilized world under penalty of death. So, and on top of that, he did something that is still fucked up the whole planet to this day. I mean, he basically took on the map of the known world, he crossed out Judea and he wrote Palestinia. So the world is fucked up in the Middle East because of the third Jewish revolt before Christ. Okay. Actually, I think it was like, it may have been like 8 AD or something, or 12 AD or something like that when the third Jewish revolt was. We're talking about shit that happened way before there was a pope. And I'm not canceling out the Bill of Rights. I'd be happy if somebody bought me a bottle of Chianti, okay?
Okay, so this guy who's very un-American says that because a European pope said something in the 1400s, said that applies to American law today. Okay, and he's saying that this pope said that any European nation that planted their flag on another country more or less owned it, and anybody who was living there beforehand, too bad for them. All right. England used to own pretty much every Arab country there is today. So, by his logic, England is still responsible for those countries. Therefore, by his logic, England is responsible for 9/11. Okay? If you wanna play the game by his rules, then you gotta flip that stuff and put it back in his face and go, all right, a European country took over all these Arab lands, and then they granted them their independence. And all they've been doing since then is fighting amongst each other and creating terrorists. Therefore, England is responsible. You know what I'm saying? As ridiculous as that sounds, although yeah, I mean, you could play. That's his way of thinking. You've got to meet his level of ridiculousness with equal on the same, by the same guidelines for him. Well, he probably wouldn't change his mind.
He gave me his phone number. I'm sure he's a nice person. I have his email and phone number, but I'll probably buy him a drink, and hopefully I'll have a different bartender who doesn't mind if I say "fuck the Pope" really loud. But it's anyway. This is a perfect lead on what you just said to Brexit, which is another instant catastrophe, instant apocalypse waiting to happen. And it will be funny if I don't know who said this. I think I heard it somewhere, but if Britain somehow lost all sovereignty over their country, and it just wound up being in the UK wound up being a collection of people arguing in Parliament and about each two parties, Labour and the Tories, just arguing with each other in Parliament endlessly, and the press trying to cover it, trying to figure out which side is right and which side is wrong and which side is politically correct and which side is not, while the economy goes down the tubes, their sovereignty is out the window, and their freedom is long gone. And what part of the problem is, one of the things that they're trying to figure out is what to do about Ireland, because if they have a customs union where England is separate from the EU, then that means there has to be some kind of border in between Northern Ireland and if they try to put a border between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland, you can count on a shooting war starting. The troubles in Ireland are going to start right back up again. People, they'll have to put in a new Royal Ulster Constabulary again, and it's going to be there's going to be a war in Ireland again. People will start blowing shit up and shooting each other if they try and militarize that border. If they try and put a fence up, there'll be a war. and so it's like, how do they get themselves this screwed up with the EU? I mean, can you imagine? It's like next in like June, I think they're going to have EU parliamentary elections. If they don't leave the EU, they're going to have EU parliamentarian elections in Britain. That would be like Russia having elections for the Duma all across America, and they get to decide what your laws are. And I mean, aren't you going to blow up a polling station or shoot anybody in line who votes for that election? I mean, it's about the same thing. Because so, I mean, there won't just be a war on the Irish border between the pro, but by the Unionists and the IRA kind of people. There'll be a war in London on the streets between the pro-Brexit and the pro-Leave, the Remain versus the Leave people. Except they don't have very many guns, so they'll probably be fighting in the street with knives or running each other, people ramming into polling stations in cars or something. I mean, and so like Brexit is an instant apocalypse waiting to happen, and Remain is an instant apocalypse, or staying in the EU is an apocalypse, and the banking system looks like it's gonna fall apart either way. Whether it happens before or after Brexit, which is supposed to be in 2 weeks, because everything's so screwed up. So, I mean, this is one of the reasons I like having a little bit of cryptocurrencies, I must say. It's just like the banking system is the whole, not just the banking system, but the whole political structure of the world is just like up in the air. I mean, you know, it's like, and America is screwed up too. I mean, we don't even have a border, I guess. We have like some open border with the southern border. And I mean, I think a few months back, I was making a joke that we should just mine the border. But if the problem is that there's a highway with 18 hours of backed up container cars and people trying to get across the border, we ought to just bomb the fucking highway. And
we don't use mines. We don't use mines.
Well, how about just like a Hellfire missile, drop it right on the container trucks and the people waiting in line to cross the border. They won't be coming up the highway anymore if we do that.
You could just use a bunch of shape charges and then cratering charges and make it so you literally just can't drive on the roads.
Yeah, if I was going to attack a convoy with ordnance, I'd probably use rockets or cluster bombs.
So you use the shape charges, and then you use cratering charges, and you stagger them, and you can make the road undrivable, like even for a tank.
Yeah.
So the military needs to just bomb the highways. So they can't.
I mean, yeah, you could. If you make it where a vehicle can't pass through there, of course they'll try to go on foot at that point. Yeah,
well, there are lots of people.
You're not going to move. You're not going to move massive amounts of people, or you're not. I should say you're not going to move goods and whatnot without vehicles. People can walk, but if you do it far enough back, they're going to have quite a ways to walk. Maybe attrition would set in, right?
Well, there's a lot of commerce that goes back and forth.
Yeah.
So you're going to kill all those people who come over to work and all the commerce or whatever.
Well, all I know is the way it is set up, it's not working. And it just seems out of all the solutions, bombing the highway seems the least expensive. But
I mean, yeah. I suppose if money's a factor. I mean,
well, the Democrats don't want to give us any money to build the wall, so okay, we'll just bomb the highway instead. That's cheaper. Yeah, plenty of.
You realize that we have to cross a boundary to do that.
Well, but Mexico is controlled. Isn't control. It's controlled by the cartels. It's a narco state.
Why don't we have the CIA pay the cartels to kill the caravan people?
Plausible deniability. We'll pay somebody else to do it.
Why? We've done it before.
Okay, you're my minister in charge of foreign affairs to figure all that out.
Oh, great.
Well, I mean, here's one thing: if you just make all drugs legal, then you'll strangle off the cartels.
Yeah.
Well, they're making money doing human trafficking, sex trafficking.
Yeah, you make prostitution legal also, and then there's
honestly, I'd rather us go to Mexico with a proposal that we annex Mexico.
Are you kidding? We can't afford to fix that. We can't even afford to fix our own country. We can't afford to fix Mexico.
If we just made everybody in Mexico an American citizen, and now we had control over that, all the Mexican states become American states. Yeah, we'd have to squeeze more another row of stars on a flag. But
we're talking about Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. I mean,
well, I mean, if it works out well, we just keep going until everybody's American.
Well,
we'll adopt the Islamic doctrine, if convert or die. No, but I mean, if we took over Mexico legally, if we went in there and we said, look, we'll fix your problems, but you got to become part of America. The government might say no, the cartels might say no, but the other 99% of the population might go, that's not a bad idea.
Fuck the gringos is what they'll say. In Venezuela, they might say yes, but it's not that bad in Mexico yet. So it's not that great in Mexico, but it's not that bad. I mean, now there's too much national pride. They're not going to do that.
I do think we should be able to protect our borders at all costs. I really don't want to ask an American serviceman to mow down a family once they step foot into America. But I do think that we should have the legal right. Well, I think we should have the legal right to do it. I think that if we want to put troops down on the border with shoot to kill, if they cross this line, no questions asked, shoot to kill, we should be able to do that. And to hell with some of the things people are complaining about. The problem is now that poor 19-year-old kid's got to live with the fact that they just mowed down a bunch of unarmed civilians, even though it's legal, and even though they might be, at the time think they're doing the right thing. For the rest of their life, they got to live with that. And I tell you, that's not an easy thing but it's a whole thing. The first group that walked across the border, and they had CNN there and everything, and they're watching the American military shoot them once they cross this line. Until they get to that line, they're fine. But as soon as they step over that line,
that's why I like the idea of
nobody would come to this country illegally ever again.
I know, but again. That's why I like the idea of aerial bombardment. It's because it's less
more
personal.
sterile. Yeah, it is. But it's the whole thing where is if the American government, even if it's just the president, but if the whole American government stood up and said, look, this is our country. We're not going to do a thing. If you stand an inch within your border, we're not going to do a thing. But as soon as you step an inch over onto ours, your ass is, whatever. And they backed it up. The problem is, how do you ask our military to do something like that? I mean, yes, they are protecting America. They are. But it's not the whole, it's not as easy as it sounds.
It's not the combat.
I don't care about the legalities. I don't care about pissing off Mexico. I don't care what England thinks of us as a barbaric society.
That's not the concept of warfare that the soldiers. That's not what soldiers think of as warfare. So I can understand.
No. See, okay, when they send you off to war, they tell you, there's the enemy, kill them. Now, the enemy's supposed to wear a uniform. The enemy's supposed to have an organized military. The enemy's supposed to follow Geneva Convention, all this other stuff. After a while, you find out, okay, the enemy's wearing civilian clothes. The enemy's not an organized, trained unit. They definitely don't care about the Geneva Convention. But when the enemy is still doing things against America, then it's a little bit easier to accept the fact, especially if they're shooting at you. But these people aren't. I mean, like if every third person walked over with a gun or something like that, or they started for some reason or other attacking the American troops on the border, it might be a little bit easier to accept those orders. And I know somebody's out there probably going, "What the heck are you talking about? You can't." It's not about the people. It's not about how we look to the rest of the world. It's not about your damn feelings. It's about protecting America, America first, American interests first. And I don't care. I don't care if it was 50,000 Canadians walking across the border into Minnesota. I would have the same rules. There's a legal way to come to our country to work. There's a legal way to come to our country to live. There's a legal way to become a citizen.
Well, how's she
Do
going,
that.
eh?
Otherwise, you're a tourist.
How's she going, eh?
I'm glad we don't have Biker Bob on this chat. So, all right.
I think you should remove the. I mean, I think something we could do to. Didn't like a whole bunch of those people go missing? Didn't like a whole crap load of the refugees go missing? Like 100
no, they
of
just
them?
100. I mean, they have, what is it, 4,000 every day? 4,000 migrants intercepted every day or something like that?
Yeah,
I don't know
what
who
happened.
went missing.
What happened to that line I used to hear like 10 years ago, where the Democrats used to say, we need stronger borders because they're taking away your union work. George Bush is an evil, terrible person who's bringing in illegals in order to line the pockets of big corporations and to undermine your union jobs. What happened to all that?
Well, I think that the people that are coming in, a lot of them just want any kind of a job, even if that Americans don't want, like working in farms, picking vegetables.
Do you know how many of our factories we've moved down to Mexico because the labor is so cheap? And it costs a lot of money to send Americans down there to teach those people how to do something that American factory workers can do. It costs a lot of money to send those people up here to be trained.
That was NAFTA. That was all because of NAFTA.
Yeah, NAFTA's a joke. But the whole thing is, when somebody goes, well, they just don't have any jobs down there. That's a load of crap. America has moved. Okay, the truck I'm in right now was assembled in Mexico, mostly out of American parts, so that's kind of weird. But it was assembled in Mexico and put on a train and brought back up here to Michigan. So, I mean, they've got jobs. They've got jobs. You got a bunch of people that have certain feelings about that. And don't get me wrong, it's just ugly. It's an ugly situation. If those people really want what we have, they need to do what we did. And that's have a revolution against their government, against the cartels, arm themselves. I bet America would back them up if they wanted to have something like our revolution. Every country out there that wants what we have, instead of coming over here, doing it the easy way, the lazy way, and coming over here and then trying to change our country into the crap hole you came from, why don't you organize and revolt and form a democratic republic, and then 200 years later, 250 years later...
Sounds like that's what they ought to do in California.
Well, they won't do that. But I'm just saying, 250 years later, you can complain about politics the way we are today. But at least you're free to do it. I mean, I'd rather see all these countries that have all these problems, and they just want to come over here and mess this place up. No, fight for your freedom the way our ancestors did.
I mean,
I know it's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask.
When my family came here, they waited after World War II. They waited 5 years for a visa in Belgium, waiting for the immigration departments to say, okay, you can come. 5 years. They could have gone to Israel right away, but they're like, no, we're going to wait to go to America. So they waited for 5 years, and that's how long it took. And because everybody is cut the line now, I don't know, it's might be 15 or 20 year wait now because there's so many illegal people that came over illegally that just are de facto living here without any documents or permission and just did it illegally. It's like what, possession is 9/10 of the law. They live here, and now there's nobody's going to send them back, and they don't have any right to be here. So they want to make. It's just like this is the Democrats trying to redo demographics in order so they can win elections. And apparently, though, they don't realize that they seem to, while they're trying to do that, they're doing everything possible to lose the next election. They're still arguing over what happened in 2016, and they're going to be arguing about whatever happened in 2016 all the way up until after they lose the 2020 election. They're going to be arguing after they lose the 2020 election. They're going to be still going to be arguing that the 2016 election was like the Russians or something. It's just, they're not only bad on policy, they don't know. I would say they don't know how to win elections, but I mean, they're in charge of the House right now for whatever. I mean, I don't know.
I will say they're doing a pretty good job with like PR in my state, but that's my state, so we knew who they were going to vote for anyways.
Well, I know in Hawaii, good luck getting it right. The Republicans aren't allowed to be on the ballot. So, and the Republican Party is run by a Democrat. So it's just it's beyond gerrymandering. It's like gerrymandering on steroids. In some of these states, you can't get a rational person in. So it's like when I did my rant on when I'm saying that these people don't have any sovereignty over me, it's the state politicians that I'm talking. I'm not talking about the federal government. I'm talking about the state politicians. They were all put in place by a corrupt system that's been gerrymandered beyond all comprehension. They don't represent anything, and they're just dumber than a bag of hammers. I mean, all of them are dumber than a bag of hammers. So, anyway, there's so many things that it's hard to pick out the one thing that could go wrong overnight. That would just, you could definitely identify, okay, the apocalypse begins now. So my fallback standard response is, how do I tell if the apocalypse has begun? Is if the condo hot tub isn't working anymore. That's how I know. It's just, I don't know if it'll be an economic collapse or something else, or just a political cluster flop that just, it's like what they're going through in the European Union. I mean, nobody in any of the countries wants to be in the EU anymore. Nobody wants to be subject to the whims of the central bank, the ECB, and it's like the Federal Reserve they're just insane. And I'm just going to tell everybody to watch that video that I have linked after the show, or maybe tomorrow morning or so when you have time, about it's called The Warning on Frontline on PBS, called The Warning. It's a show from earlier in the 2000s about the CFTC and the derivatives and long-term capital management, and basically how the Fed screwed over the country because they didn't want to rock the boat during the dot-com bubble. So yeah, no wonder AOL could afford to buy Time Warner, because their stock, for no good reason, doubled every other week. And they didn't know how to do anything. They really did everything wrong, but their stock just went up and up and up and up. So they could afford to buy a real company that actually knew how to do things. And then when Steve Case actually tried to run AOL Time Warner, everybody was shocked that the guy didn't know what the fuck he was doing. It was just a dot-com bubble. And Greenspan and Larry Summers were afraid to rock the boat. They were afraid to do anything. And regulate derivatives, God, no, they couldn't. We can't change anything because they were just deathly afraid. They knew they were in a bubble. and they didn't want it to pop, for the current president, that they work for. I mean, like Trump doesn't want the bubble to pop on his watch. I mean, if the Democrats take over in 2020, he won't mind. But right now, he's like, keep printing money, more quantitative easing. It's just like it's like what every politician wants. What does every president of the United States want? A second term. That's all he wants right now. So yeah, they're going to keep printing money, and so if the president of the Fed says, well, we may have to raise rates. I mean, that's like throwing cold water in the face of a bucket of water and somebody who's like sleeping. It's like, what? It's like the whole world is asleep at the switch. The car went over a cliff already, and it's on the way down. And nobody wants to jump out and try and use a parachute or anything. Let's see how fast. Let's see how hard we can hit the ground to see how big of a crater we can make.
I still don't know what derivatives are, but I listened to that at work today, and I don't agree. I think that feminazi that was trying to get the word out about what they were doing. Yeah, she should have been.
She was the president of the Stanford Law Review.
I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah,
Anyhow.
Go ahead.
Anyhow, okay. Here's the thing. What she was doing affected national security. She was trying to create. She was trying to create a panic, which could have had a really bad effect on the economy at the time. The economy was booming. Everybody was making money. Everybody was. There was no harm in this whole derivative thing. Now, I'm not saying I would have invested into it. There were lots of things people were investing into that were not a good idea to invest into. But we're a free country, so if you want to make bad choices, you have the right to do that in this country.
That's what Greenspan said. That's what Greenspan.
And there are lots of people who sit around and they watch their investments every day, and they live off those investments. They don't go to work every day. I go to work every day. I don't worry about the stock market or any of that garbage because I don't have any of those investments. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of that stuff does trickle down to the economy and will affect my job at some point. But I watched our economy fail, like they were talking about in the documentary, from an entirely different angle, and I saw it coming. It was like a train off in the distance coming at train. I do all the train videos. Is the train coming in the distance, coming at me, getting closer and closer and closer. And it had nothing to do with derivatives for us. It had nothing to do with derivatives for a lot of different industry in this country. The working class people took a hit too. It wasn't just the rich who sat at home watching their stocks go up. So I don't think that causing a panic or attempting to cause people, even though you're trying to get the truth out there. I do believe that we have the right to the truth. I do believe we have the right to, but I don't like the fact that I really think the woman was just trying to get, she wanted to be right. Okay, she wanted to be right.
She was right.
It doesn't matter whether she was right or wrong. She didn't care about what she did.
She was following the law. Something that
whatever.
That was so funny when Larry Summers told her, the president, somebody who used to be the president of the Stanford Law Review, that Larry Summers, economist, would because him and Greenspan didn't want her to regulate derivatives, that he would have a lawyer call her up and explain to her the law to her. Like she didn't know the law. That's like me having you call up my thoracic surgeon and explaining heart surgery to him. It's like, no.
All I know is All I know is when the economy failed, there's a lot more to it than derivatives. Okay, there were lots of people making bad choices. They made bad choices because they believed what other people told them. They made
But
bad
they
choices because
weren't making bad choices with their money. They were making bad choices with other people's money, with the bank's money, with the depositors' money, with the taxpayers' money.
Eh. All I'm saying is everybody in the 90s had an opportunity to make money. And people in the 90s had an opportunity to pull their money out of risky investments. They had an opportunity to research what they were putting their money into. They had they didn't nobody you didn't have to invest.
How can you research anything if everything is a lie? I mean, I can tell you I both made a lot of money and lost a lot of money in the 90s. And like I owned WorldCom, but it's like that guy went to jail. The guy that was running WorldCom went to jail because it was fraud. And that's what, I mean, fraud is fraud. She was trying to prevent fraud. Okay? That's what she was doing. She was trying to prevent fraud. And if you don't get that, then you need to watch it again. She was following the law trying to prevent fraud. If trying to prevent fraud somehow, I mean, people stealing from a lot of people, if that it causes the economy to crater, then that, I mean, the economy wasn't cratered because of her.
People were investing money. People were buying stocks. People like me were now suddenly buying stocks. People like me weren't buying stocks in the past. There were all kinds of things going on. Businesses were booming. Technology was really picking up and taking off. People were having technology they never had before, and all kinds of stuff was going on. It was a really good time. Everybody felt confident and stuff. There were a lot of changes going on and whatnot, but still, we had just come off the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, and we kicked ass in that war. So, you know, America and everything else. And I'm not saying it was a perfect time.
You have to do me one favor. I want you to text me. If you ever decide to buy Bitcoin, text me because I'll know. I know, but if you ever do, text me and let me know because then I'll know it's time to get the fuck out.
Maybe, but the whole thing is that whole time I had opportunity to buy stock and I didn't buy stock. I don't believe in stock. I don't believe. Lots of people do. They buy stocks. They buy bonds. They invest in business. They do all kinds of things with their money because they're trying to turn their money into more money without actually having to work. The bottom line is they don't want to work. I work for my money.
That's not all people are trying to do with their investments. They're trying to preserve their assets.
No.
Preserve everything they work for.
You've got $1 million. You want to turn it into 2. You invest it with the hopes that you double it.
You've got $1 million and you don't want it to turn into 0.
Well, then don't spend it. They're done.
That doesn't mean that, you can just hold the cash in your hand and it becomes worth less and less because they have this thing called quantitative easing, which is just another word for money printing. And the more they print, the less yours is worth. So if you just standing still.
What I'm saying is the lazy people sat on their computers and drank their cocktails or drank their fancy coffee and day traded and they ended up losing their ass. The stupid people who could only afford a $120,000 house got a loan for a $300,000 house. The ignorant people didn't take the time to learn anything about banking or money or what they were investing in or what was going on with their company or anything because they were just making money hand over fist. And as long as it's rolling in, it's rolling in. Everybody paid the price. Even the innocent person who didn't do anything, didn't invest their money here, paid all their bills on time, they still ended up losing their houses or losing their jobs. When it crashed, it was a bad time. But derivatives were not the one thing that made everything else. Derivatives, okay, from what that documentary was saying, it's rich people investing a lot of money. Whether
it's not rich people. It's bankers.
The banks. That's all rich people to me.
Money.
That's all. To the working class person, that's all. That's all it is. Okay. It's just like when you ask the average person. When you ask the average person, about what's going on over in Europe, they don't give 2 shits. Because they just don't. So all I'm saying is what that documentary was to me was just a bunch of rich people talking about rich people things. It just didn't mean anything to me. It just didn't.
I think I'll say hello out there to everybody in the external chat. Why don't you tell us about your trip to Arizona?
I went to Arizona, and I'm back.
Thanks for the update.
All right.
So, I mean, other than you drank Pacifico and
Yeah, okay, so for everybody who wants to go ahead and give me shit every time I say buy American, I bought Mexican beer. So
Mexican beer doesn't have formaldehyde. American beer does.
Well, I'm just saying that as much as I'm always going buy American, I bought Mexican beer. So if anybody wants to give me any grief, I brought it on myself. But let's see what else. Yeah, I went to I went to New Mexico, Nevada, and Arizona, and I don't know, pretty good time. Did a lot of hiking, a whole lot of hiking.
You sent me a text saying you did something wrong in your hiking. Was it navigational or not enough water? Or
no, it wasn't navigation. So we were out there hiking, and we were on the edge of town. We were out on the edge of town, Las Vegas. So where we were at, we were high up, and you can look down and see the valley, and you can see all the buildings, and you can see Mount Charleston and everything else. We weren't so far away from civilization that we didn't have, access to 911 or anything. I mean, down below us, where they were building a new subdivision, but we went out there and we were all hydrated. We had just ate breakfast and we had plenty of water and stuff like that. And we brought sunscreen and, I made sure everybody was wearing shoes or hiking boots. And, we had, well, no, I mean, it's just like no flip flops. All right, guys, come on. Right. But we got halfway up the hill and the kids got separated from us and they're so far away. They're moving a lot faster than us because we're older, that I realized we should have brought binoculars. That way we could at least see them. Okay? And you can text them all you want, call them, whatever.
You split up? So you got split up? You got split up with your kids?
Their phones with them when they're out there. And there are some places where you can when you're hiking.
So basically you lost your kids in the middle of the hike is what you're saying? Okay, Squib's having you're cutting in and out, so.
That's because I'm walking between my house and the driveway.
Okay, I just want to make sure we get the facts right. I don't want to jump to any conclusions and say something that.
All right, I switched over to data. Should be stable now. Okay. So we should have had some binoculars for us. That way, if the kids are far away, we can actually see them. I mean, they were so far away that we had trouble seeing them until they got to the top of the other hill, and we could see their outline against the background. And you could yell all you want, they couldn't hear us. They didn't, And I even asked them. I said, when you got up there did you take pictures with your phones? And they're both like, no. I'm like, ugh. You climbed all the way up there. And you didn't even take pictures of this, kids. So it's like, okay, next time we should have binoculars. Another thing is
a megaphone.
Yeah, a megaphone. Radios might have worked because where we were at, we had line of sight. But if they had gone the backside of that hill, or we'd gone the backside of the hill we were on, the radios wouldn't work very well. Another thing is we brought a first aid kit with us on the trip, and we left it at the hotel. And we just didn't think about it. I had an e-tool in the bag. I brought a range bag, and I put a bunch of different things in there and just carried it with. And I had an e-tool in there, but I didn't have a first aid kit. What the heck was I? And my wife brought it up, too, because she's like, we should have brought the first aid kit. We got up there, and it's really rocky, and I'm already picturing one of my kids falling over there and bashing their skull open. And turns out one of the kids did trip and fall, and he got bumps and bruises and scrapes. Nothing life-threatening. Didn't have to go to the emergency room or nothing, but still, it would have been good to have the first aid kit. Didn't have that. Just really should have thought this through a little bit better. As many times as we've gone hiking, and I know better, and like I said, we brought one with us on the trip. It was in the hotel room, and I don't know. So in the in the future, we're thinking that what we should do is just make some dedicated backpacks with all of our hiking gear and just take that with us on the trips. And you just grab the backpack and it's got everything that you think you're going to need.
How I do it, I mean, is I have a bug out bag, which is for bugging out, and then I have a day mission bag, and it sounded like what you need. I mean, it's my Camelback Mule hydration bag, and it's got all kinds of stuff for a day hike, or one or two nights. All I need to do is grab it and go. At least you need an EDC bag, and I have a bit or a pouch. But I think I have a video on my EDC bag, which I just wound up mollying onto my day mission bag because I really don't EDC I EDC a lot of things, but not my EDC bag. I wound up just putting it on found it more convenient to put it on my day mission bag. And so I just have more stuff in my because the Camelback Mule is it's not like the Rush 24th bag that I have for my bug out bag, but I'd say check out the Camelback Mule. That's my day mission bag. It's got a hydration bladder in it. I've got a water me and water filtration. I've got like a inline filter that I can use in between the bladder and the outspout and where you drink from. And I've got all kinds of stuff in there: first aid, fire starting. You name. I mean, it's not as much stuff as my bug out bag, but for a day mission, I don't have a megaphone or anything in there. But there was a trail you guys are on, right? So they didn't get lost or anything.
No, it wasn't a trail. Where we went to on that particular one, we were at Sloan Canyon National Conservation Area. And they did have some trails, but the weird thing was these trails, you had to park on a residential street, and these trails come through kind of some real ritzy neighborhoods in Henderson, Nevada. And we were like, no, we don't want to be walking the trails with people with their pedigree dogs sipping on their lattes. We want to walk out in the trails. These trails started out as like concrete sidewalks and stuff, right? It's like, no. We want to go out in the desert kind of stuff. And I think we should go back and park on one of these streets and walk one of these trails and just see if they start to get more rugged or they're not. Some trails you go on, they're really easy to hike. I'm not saying we're looking for, straight sheer cliff rock climbing. We're not looking for that. But some of them are they're really easy, and that's good for beginners or if you've got small children with you or whatever. But our kids are a little bit older, and I've got a lot of experience hiking in the desert, and my wife gets more and more.
It sounds to me like what you needed was a trail guide, somebody who knew that you should.
Hell no, I don't need no trail guide.
They know the area, and you don't. They know the best trails.
No. That's like paying a travel agent to do your vacation. Please, we just wanted to go out and in the open, and that's where we went. When we went to the visitor center. Everything behind it was open desert, and that's what we wanted. So we were hiking in the open desert like we wanted, but originally we were going to try to take a trail. Now, our second hike of the trip was in Tucson. Well, we did 2 hikes on the very first day we got out to Arizona in Tucson. And on the second one, I came across a rattlesnake. And I tried to record me messing with the snake, and I made a few mistakes. One, I bumped the damn camera on the damn smartphone, and I flipped it around. So I'm pointing the rear camera at the snake the whole time, and the front camera's on.
At least you didn't try to get a selfie with it.
Well, I thought about grabbing it. And then I'm like, well, what am I going to do with it? So, because I was on another chat, and we were talking about snakes, and everybody on there is scared crapless of snakes, and it's like, don't be afraid of snakes. But
okay.
So, the thing was trying to hide under. It was trying to hide under a prickly pear, and I wanted to see it and get some pictures of it so I could identify which particular species it was. And then, two, I kind of wanted to show that rattlesnakes really aren't dangerous. And I was poking at it, and I got it to strike the stick, and because I just picked up a stick, and I got it to strike the stick, And eventually I got it where I could, I'm pointing the camera at it, and you can see the markings on the snake and everything. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting great footage. And, and I threw away the stick and ran down the trail to catch up to my wife. And when I got to her, I realized I should have looked at the stick to see if there was venom on it or not, because they don't always inject venom. So when it struck the stick, it might have just struck with its fangs and that was it. And I'm like, well, I ain't walking all the way back there to go find, I let a couple people know, hey, there's a rattlesnake underneath this cactus. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. It was cold out for the snake. It was in the 60s. So it was out on the trail trying to sun itself to warm up. And it was moving really sluggish. So, it was no threat.
They can move fast if they have to, those snakes.
Oh yeah, I mean they can they can lunge forward. I was making sure that I didn't have the
if it's a sidewinder, they can haul fast. Really fast.
It wasn't a sidewinder, but it was a diamondback, I think. But the snake was, it could have lunged forward probably a little bit more than it did, but based on the size of the snake, I kept my distance. I extended my arm all the way, and I had a decent sized stick. But, later when I went back to look at the video, I go, oh, I had the camera point, you idiot. And another thing was that when it struck the stick, I pulled back. And I'm thinking, it's not my arm, it's not my leg. What do I care if it strike the stick again? Why did I pull back? I don't know, it was instinct or something. So I was a little bit disappointed in myself. So note to self, next time you're out in the desert messing with a snake and you're filming it, watch the footage before you leave, just in case you have to go back and mess with it again.
Make sure you're out of range of the snake before you start looking at footage.
And, they're more scared of you than you are of it. It's just, all these people have this thing about snakes. Oh, they look creepy. Oh, they look slimy. Oh, they're so dangerous. Oh, the Bible says they're evil. And
they're not evil. They're dangerous. I mean, they can be.
They're not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm more worried about a sea snake, which we don't have in this part of the world. But then actually most of the really, really dangerous snakes are overseas. So yeah.
There are. I mean, I love watching. I think I was watching Primal Survivor in Guyana. There's a couple episodes that I watched on Entertainment on Demand on. I don't know if it's Nat Geo Wild or something, but Primal Survivor, and there was a snake in there. It wasn't venomous, but it had 100, it had rows of these, its teeth were they weren't fangs, they were needle, they were almost slightly bigger than microscopic needles, hundreds of them, and so and they're painful, and so he was climbing up a tree, and this snake took a bite at him, and he had to lunge back, and he couldn't just run away because he was climbing up a tree, and it was 50 feet up a tree. You can't just drop because you'll fall to your death. But so there's dangerous snakes out there, but yeah, there's venom. If you're hiking and if you get hit with venom, that's a dangerous situation. I mean, if you get injected with venom, then there's lots of things. Definitely, there's a sea crate is a real dangerous snake in the ocean, but there's a lot of venomous things in the ocean. Luckily, I live in Hawaii, and we don't have any snakes on the land unless somebody brings one in. But there aren't any native snakes in Hawaii. We do have scorpions. We do have brown recluse spiders, which are venomous and very, very toxic, and you don't want to get bit by a brown recluse. But there's other venomous. Venom isn't something to take lightly. One of the most venomous critters is in the ocean is the Geographers cone snail. And it's got it's got neurotoxin because it's a snail that eats fish, and so obviously a snail can't move as fast as a fish in water, so it has this toxic dart that it shoots, and it's the neurotoxin basically paralyzes the fish instantly. it's like one of the strongest neurotoxins on the planet. So if you see a slow-moving snail underwater, stay the freak away from it, because those things shoot spines that are loaded with neurotoxins that will just stop your heart. And there's snakes out there, like I think in Asia there's like a 2-step that you'll die like you after it bites you 2 steps, and then you're dead. So, but there's a lot of neurotoxins are something not to be taken lightly. So if people are afraid of snakes, there's a good reason to steer clear from them, especially if you're nowhere near medical care. But okay, I just want to say something for any cryptocurrency fans. I saw the Dash Force news last week, and there was a great show on a new cryptocurrency wallet. When version 3 of Vega wallet comes out, check it out. It's gonna be. It looks freaking awesome. It's going to be an app on your phone, on your desktop, and it's going to have. It looks like it has almost every feature that you could possibly want for a wallet, and it's like almost an exchange without being an exchange. And from what I could understand from the Dash Force News YouTube channel, was that the stream is still up. You want to check it out, but of the developer of that software, but you do keep your private keys to yourself, so you're not on an exchange. But he kind of explained about if you want to trade or something, you temporarily transfer to an exchange, get your coins, and then get off of it. But Vega Wallet looks very interesting when version 3 comes out. It's not out yet. I think in 30 days it'll be out, something like that. But you can just go to Vega Wallet's website or just do a standard internet search engine and search for Vega Wallet if you want more information about it. Let's see. Okay, we covered snakes, hiking. Did you like Arizona? Why did you go to Arizona? If you're still with us.
I'm here. Hold on.
Yeah, okay. So sorry, guys, if you tuned in late. My camera is not working on Google Chrome because I think, but okay. Just let me know when you're ready to answer that.
Why did I go to Arizona?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why? I mean, did you have any specific reason for picking Arizona? Or?
Oh, we go out west every year. Sometimes we do it twice a year. We like it out there. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Like?
Michigan is not bad. Michigan's not bad, and my wife was born and raised here. I'm the one that's moved around most of my life. But what her and I like to do is out there, not really here. The weather we like is out there, not here. The geography we like is out there, not here. But that doesn't mean Michigan's a bad place. Every state you live in is a trade-off. You're going to trade something for something. And that was part of it. When we were there, I can't stand people on bicycles. Cyclists piss me off. Okay? You're a grown man. What are you doing riding around on a child's toy?
A bicycle isn't a child's toy,
dude. It's a child's toy.
Bullshit.
So, it is. So, on top of that, you're riding in the street, right on the sidewalk. That's what they paved it for. Well, out there, they've got lanes for bicycles.
The sidewalk is not for bicycles.
Yeah, it is.
It's for pedestrians.
Well, here they don't have designated cyclist lanes. These guys ride out in the road, and they are the biggest assholes. It's like if they get run over, they got what they deserve because they taunt cars. They do. Out here, they taunt cars. Like, come on, run me over. You know, okay, I'll oblige you.
I gotta tell you this story. Go ahead, you finish first.
So out there, they actually have them. They're marked. You know, they got the lines and stuff, and they're up against the curb. And there's a dotted line when you're trying to make a right-hand turn, and there's a deceleration lane. to make a right-hand turn, there's a dotted line showing that it's a crossover. So you've got to watch out for these guys out in the street in their designated lanes. And there's lots of them out there. And I just don't like that. Keep it at home. Put it on your, I'll refrain from using an adjective I'd like to use right now, bike rack on your CRV and take it out to the park or ride it on the sidewalk. But it don't belong in the street with me in a motor vehicle or on a motorcycle. And by the way, people who ride bicycles are cyclists. They're not bikers. Bikers ride motorcycles. So anyhow, I was getting really irritated with all these cyclists and their silly little lanes painted in there and having to keep checking for these idiots because they don't obey the traffic laws even though they're supposed to. And my wife said, if we move out here, you're going to have to get used to that. And when I saw the rattlesnake in the trail, and I said, well, there's a rattlesnake, and she made a wide path around it and said, all right, I'm going to keep going. You want to mess with it? Be my guest. And off she went. And I messed with it for probably 10 minutes before I went and caught up to her. And she's like, I don't like that at all. And I go, really? Huh? Well, if we move out here, you better get used to that. And she just looked at me like, yeah, she walked right into that one because she don't like the rattlesnakes and I don't like the cyclists. But when we go out there, we look around and we look at everything about living out there. How much do houses cost? How are the roads? What's the other infrastructure like? We went to Safeway twice. Okay, I mean, who goes to Safeway on their vacation, right? We try to get well, whatever. But I mean, we try to get an idea of the local cuisine. We don't necessarily go to the chain fast food places. Although on this trip we did more of that than we normally do. We try to get a feel for stuff. We try to drive in rush hour traffic. I mean, that just might sound ridiculous to some people, but I mean, that's not the whole point of our vacation. We hung out by the pool. We went to some national parks. We had a good time, did some shopping, crap like that. But when we go out there, we try to do our research as far as learning as much as we can about trying to get any sort of idea of what it's like to live there. And
What town?
We started off in Tucson, then we went to Vegas, then we went to Las Cruces, and then we came home. So,
can I tell you my bicycle story that's gonna piss you off?
Did you antagonized somebody in a car, didn't you?
No, somebody in the car antagonized me. So I was doing my daily bicycle ride, which I used to bicycle ride 80 miles a day. So I'm going down Sherman Way, the San Fernando Valley, and I come to a red light at Sherman Way in Topanga Canyon. So I stop because it's a red light, and my foot is on the. It's my right foot is like right on the curb, but my bicycle's just like a foot into the gutter. So, and so a car pulls up right by me. And I'm just waiting for the light to change because it's a red light. And he wants to make a right turn, and he can't because I'm like a foot in the gutter or something. So him and his girlfriend or whatever are in their car, their windows rolled up. His girlfriend looks at me angrily and points at the sidewalk like she wants me to be on the sidewalk or something. When I have just as much, according to the laws of the road, I have just as much the right to the street as they do. So, she gives me the finger, so I'm feeling kind of nasty. So I spit on the passenger window right at her. Big loogie. And she recoils from the window like I was a rattlesnake or something. and the guy, the car behind was like 3 guys in a Jeep, and they just like rolled over laughing at the car. You could hear them start laughing their ass off. And then so that he guns the engine around me. I mean, this is against a red light, and like and like peels out to get away from me because I spit on the passenger window. I didn't spit on her. I spit on the window, right? But I spit right at her. So he peels out and makes a right turn, like a really dangerous right turn around me and into the onto Topanga going north. And he almost hit another car trying to get away from me. And I was just minding my own business when this, bitch starts yelling at me, pointing at the sidewalk and giving me the finger. So of course I spit on the fucking passenger side window. And I had a really wonderful bicycle ride. I mean, I used to ride 80 miles a day from Reseda. I had a condo in Reseda, which I had to sell to build my business. But I used to ride from Reseda to basically I'd go to Topanga, turn left, and then I'd go till I got to Mulholland Highway in Topanga, and then I just take that all the way through past Canaan Dune, all the way down to County Line, Pacific Coast Highway, and then I'd head back up. So that'd be like north up to way the hell up north, and then when I get to the ocean, where Mulholland ends at the ocean at County Line Beach, and then I'd head back. I'd go all the way to Topanga Canyon and PCH, and then I'd climb up the Topanga Canyon uphill. So it was a long, tough hike, a long, tough, bike ride up that. So it's like 80 miles, and a lot of it was uphill. Mulholland was mostly uphill. Topanga was definitely uphill from the ocean to the top peak, and then back down into the valley and back to Reseda. But I used to bike 80 miles a day, and when my place burned down in Malibu, the only thing that got saved was my road bike, which I still have. And what was really funny is that recently I had taken it to a local bike shop, and he's like, "Wow, oh my God, that's a Davidson." I think it's a Seattle manufacturer that makes these, and because it's a double-butted steel bike, they don't make them like that anymore. He said, if this bike was brand new, it would be worth $5,000. Shit. When I bought it, I paid like $1,200, and I think that was in the late 80s or something. And that was a lot of money back in the 80s. So I remember I put it on my credit card, and I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. But I mean, I think I was 20 when I bought it, but I paid for it. And that was one of the things. It's just like spiritually, when I first moved to Hawaii, when I first came out here, it was on a back roads, a bicycle trip around the Big Island. And they have like a van support, and you bicycle a certain amount each day, and they'd have different hotels booked around the island, and they'd have a van support so we could stop off the side of the road or at a scenic spot for lunch, and they'd have, lunch for you. But your whole thing was you're just bicycling around the island and enjoying it. And the last night was at the Ritz-Carlton Maunalani Hotel. Ritz doesn't run it anymore, but the hotel's still there. But it was like I died and went to heaven. That particular resort is a very beautiful place. The Maunalani vacation resort hotel. They got like jacuzzis on the ocean, a really awesome little lagoon, and it was just incredible. It's like I died and went to heaven. I remember getting a call from the studio back then, and somebody said, "Hey, you left." Basically, somebody had loaned the studio a microphone for us to try out because he wanted to sell us a microphone, a Sennheiser 421, I think, and he had wanted the payment because I hadn't bought it yet because I had my vacation scheduled. And so he had called and saying, and he wanted the mic back or the money. And it's like, dude, I'm at the Maunalani Hotel. I'll pay you when I get back. Okay. And it was like, he was like, oh, I wasn't going to run. He realized I wasn't going to run out without paying him or anything. I was just on vacation. So anyway. Let's see. You haven't gone to Prescott yet?
Prescott,
right? Yeah, I know. People say if you say it wrong, to a local and if you say Prescott, then they'll know you're an idiot. And but only in Prescott will they know you're an idiot. If you're on the internet, nobody will know that I'm an idiot except you.
Yeah, we haven't gone up to Prescott. I'd like to maybe go up there for a weekend, go up through Wickenburg, and then cut up through Congress up there, and just kind of, you want to go up there to drink and all that. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to drink if I go up there, but
I like the restaurants. You'll love the restaurants there. They have great restaurants.
Yeah. But that'd probably be on one of the trips where it's just me and the wife. And we had the kids on this trip. We were doing a family one this time. And we were doing more family stuff, really, than... I mean, don't get me wrong. Me and her, we hung out by the pool when we could and did this and that. But really, we were just trying to get some family time. Hiking is something that we like to do as a family. The kids really aren't interested in looking at the scenery, and me and my wife are. But as soon as we park the car, they're all over it. They're they want to go up and down the trails, and they're looking for wildlife like us. When I was messing with that rattlesnake, they saw a roadrunner. So, they know what to look for, and we went to a state park and a national park in Tucson, and then we went to 2 national conservation areas in Vegas, and then we went to a national monument outside of Las Cruces, and then the national park with the Department of the Army manages the Trinity site, and we went there. So we kind of did the national park thing again. So
did you here's when we were driving through Prescott, coming back from the Safeway to our vacation rental, we almost hit a javelina. Did you see any of those?
Javelina.
Yeah.
No, but when we were in Tucson hiking around the parks, I brought my javelina call, and I was calling them in, and they didn't come running out of nowhere. So my wife's like, "Would you put that away?"
This thing just ran right in front of our Jeep Cherokee, Grand Jeep Cherokee, and we missed it by like 5 feet.
Yeah, we the biggest thing we saw were deer in New Mexico, but yeah.
But that was right. That was right near the center of town. I mean, the Safeway isn't that far from the Whiskey Row.
I've seen pictures from Phoenix and Tucson with people having them in their backyard. You know what I mean? So they're all over. But I still haven't seen one in the wild. Or I should say, I've seen them on the internet. I haven't seen one in person or whatever. But I had my javelina call, and I was trying to call them in. So.
They might be dangerous for your domestic dog. I don't know if your dog could handle a javelina or not.
We didn't bring dog with. He was at the kennel. So
right. I mean, if you move there or something one day, that might be a problem.
Then I'll just put the javelina down. So.
Well, I mean, if you're there when your dog encounters one, I mean.
Well, I mean, I don't know. German Shepherd versus Javelina. My money's on the dog. So.
Well, I don't know. Wild animals over domestic animals. My money's on the wild animal.
I don't know. Until I get to see one up close, I can't really pass judgment. But yeah, I was trying to get him to come in. So.
Is Sig a full size male German Shepherd?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's a big dog then.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a decent size.
I remember one time when my uncle first moved out to California, he brought a German Shepherd with him, and it was so big. We had a little beagle, Samoyed crossbreed at the time, which was a lot smaller dog, but the German Shepherd was so gentle that the beagle was just sniffing the German Shepherd, and it sniffed inside his mouth. And the beagle basically put his head inside the German Shepherd's mouth, and the German Shepherd wouldn't close his mouth on him or anything. He just kept his mouth open while the beagle was sniffing inside. It's like our beagle was so stupid.
I mean, sometimes the dogs will play fight and stuff like that when you get them together. But for the most part, I mean, they're so unless you raise your dog to be an asshole, it's not gonna try to hurt other dogs. I finally have somebody to talk to, So, I mean, there's a lot of dogs that you see a big dog and a small dog, and you instantly think, "Uh-oh, here we go," and it's not always the case,
Well, okay, we're getting onto the subject of dogs, and
No.
let's see. I think we covered most everything about the instant apocalypse. Is there any questions out there? I see a lot of people that have been in and out of here. I don't know if they're still there. Jesse James, Steve D, Vanessa was out there earlier. Let's see, who else? For conservative.
Here, I'm gonna go out on the back deck and blast away with this thing. Hopefully, I don't wake anybody up.
What is that?
Call.
Oh, that's supposed to be a javelina?
Well, there's a guy on YouTube who was showing the different calls, and I was just, it's a real half-ass imitation, but I mean, so I don't know. I've never heard one. I think it sounds like a wounded javelina, so they all come running to see who got jacked up. But there was a guy with one of these on YouTube, and these suckers were just running in there to him. And I'm like, wow, all right, I got to try that. Well, I guess individual results may vary. So.
Okay, Dano left a message earlier in the chat. I doubt he's still around, but he wanted to know whose gold did they take. The central banks, Central Bank of Italy's bank gold. That's whose gold. But since the central banks of Italy failed, you're talking about failed stock prices, failed bond, worthless stock, worthless bank bonds, and accounts that just people couldn't. There wasn't any money. The banks closed, so they want to just seize all the gold that's in all the banks, and the government's going to just take it. So, Casey, he's probably not there anymore, but he did ask the question. Sorry, I wasn't looking when he asked the question. All right. So, Jared, are you still with us?
Yep.
Okay, me and Squib have been babbling. So I thought, did you want to talk about anything going on in your state as far as, or just any magazines that you picked up, or any other stuff that's been going on Second Amendment wise?
I picked up an ARAC 21 upper off a gun broker. The guy's in Hilo.
Somebody who's sending you an upper from Hilo? Okay. Is that what you sent me to look on? Because you sent me a link in the text on our phones or something. Was that what you're sending me?
Yeah, and it was $820 shipped. But the guy was like kind of lazy, and he didn't want to it said buyer pays shipping, but then he didn't include it in the price. So I kind of like guessed the dimensions of the package he was going to buy, and then like said that in my email to him. Like, yeah, because he provided the weight, so I was like, no, I'm not waiting extra time. And I got a little worried because it was money order only, USPS money order only. But that's the way gunbroker, for me at least, I've seen a lot more in the past.
I've never actually bought anything off Gunbroker. I have looked at stuff on there, but
yeah. So I haven't seen that lately because a lot more people have been using PayPal because it's easier, quicker, faster. But yeah, so a little worried about sending him $820. But yeah, shot it over to him, and I got tracking.
Oh, you got the tracking.
Yeah, I got the tracking for my money I'm sending to him, but.
So you have to wait till he gets the check before, so he'll have the money to mail it to you. Okay.
Yeah, because once he gets the check, then he'll mail it to me. It's a green one. Do you know what the ARAC 21 is?
Not really, no.
It's a upper made by Faxon Firearms that it's like a piston upper that allows you to do caliber exchange if you want. So it's kind of weird looking. It doesn't. It's kind of like an AR 180 upper that fits on an AR.
Okay.
You'd have to Google it. I can't pull it up. I'm not on my computer, but I got that coming. I just got a shipping notification for my BRN 180, which is the AR 180 Brownells reproduction upper.
Okay.
That's coming. I'm trading my Chris Vector tomorrow for a 6.5 Creedmoor Ruger Precision.
You're trading your Chris Vector?
Yeah, I don't like it at all. I think it's garbage.
Right.
I fired a 45 one extensively a couple years ago. I thought it was cool. And then I got the 9mm. I traded my MP5 for a 9mm Chris Vector, brand new 9mm Chris Vector. I don't like it. It's just the recoil impulse is weird and bizarre. And yeah, I would have rather had like got a Scorpion for it, but I ended up with the Ruger Precision. And yeah, Second Amendment wise, there's 4 bills in Mass, state Senate stuff, and one of them is to update all of the Massachusetts gun license requirements to include range certification tests. So as of right now, it's not needed. You don't have to prove that you can shoot a target unless if you live in Boston. So they want to make it for the entire state to include that, which means the cost already is like $120 for a safety course. Now you got to add a live fire portion. It's going to go up. And on top of that, it's like $220 for the license stuff. So, I mean,
Did I talk to you guys on air about the whole thing with the situation where the police, the guy who tried to run over the police, he was like a wanted on attempted murder, and he ran his car at 3 police. They crashed into the police car. They all pulled out. 3 officers pulled out their pistols, fired 25 shots at the suspect, at the fugitive, and they all missed. Did we talk about that yet?
Not tonight, but I mean, not.
I mean, how could 3 cops miss? They fired 25 shots at the guy. Okay, it's like right after he crashed into the car, and they all missed. And that happened 3 times in 48 hours. The last time they fired at him, and he ran out of his car and into the bushes, and they couldn't find him.
Well, that happens a lot. I know you can look up the stats from New York City. The cops miss a lot, but I think the Miami-Dade shootout might also show you similar stuff where people get all excited. You get into that fight or flight mode, and you just unload your mag until you're empty, and then hey, I missed.
I think the problem in Hawaii is we don't have any place for the police to practice their marksmanship. And, I mean, you guys probably know better than me because you were in the military. I mean, marksmanship is perishable, right? I mean, if you don't practice, your accuracy fades, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's no place for them to practice here. So if they were qualified, I just think the whole force needs to be requalified on pistols.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of practice really at all. I mean, I prefer to shoot rifles a lot. I don't shoot pistols enough. But I went to do that police call, and a bunch of the dudes there had their reserve police academy training, and I outshot every one of them except for one, I believe. So.
Yeah, it's just disturbing to think that if you call the police, they can't hit anything that they're aiming at. I mean, so why call them, right? I mean,
a lot of them aren't gun guys. I mean, I was talking to a buddy who has a friend that's a Boston cop. I think I brought this up before. This pistol, he only cleaned his pistol once a year before qualification. And when my buddy looked inside his barrel, there was like salt in it from like all sorts of dust. Like definitely, if he had to pull it out and use it, it would have, potentially been a barrel obstruction. Or all the garbage and junk he had in there. He's like, well, I thought you only clean it once a year before I qual. Right?
Well, I guess he just carried it around and never fired it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. But yeah, that is ridiculous. But yeah, that's if you look, I bet Squib knows, and I'm not just making fun of him, but I mean, you know, when shit doesn't go right and you get excited, you know, you just can. I think Yankee quoted something a long time ago. He did a video and he talked about how they found out that cops who use revolvers versus cops with, you know, auto loading pistols, the police did the same thing. When they had the revolver, they'd fire all 6 shots off, you know, in haste, miss every one, and they did the same thing with the Glocks.
I have a Yankee Marshall joke.
So I mean, there was a video where he brought up stats where he was like, cops usually just fire off the whole first mag.
You know, I've told people about my deer hunt last year where I you know, did the mag dumps into the deer, and I think it was a total of 5 rounds between 2 mags. But I told Sarge, I said, hey, I finally get an appreciation for why sometimes when the cops are shooting, they unload their gun. It's not that they're how should I put it? Well, I told him more or less, I said, when I was trying to put this deer down, I was trying to put it out of its misery, all I was thinking was, stop. Just stop, okay? You're dead. You've been wounded so bad, there's nothing, if you don't die, if you don't bleed out in some, you know, marsh somewhere, some coyote's going to pick you to pieces, okay? Just let me finish you off. And every time I put another hole in the damn animal, it didn't die. Well, the thing is, you know, if I'd got the headshot, and that would have just killed it right there. But I didn't want to hit it in the head because my wife wanted me to mount this damn deer's head. So I'm trying not to hit that. But I can just remember I told Sarge, I said I saw like in big red letters go right across my vision, my field of vision, the word stop. That's all I was thinking was stop. And I think that's what the cop is thinking when he has this threat coming at him, this threat shooting at him, shooting at his partner, whatever it is. He's just thinking stop. Just stop. He hits it, and the guy doesn't fall over. He hits him again, and the guy, it still doesn't, whatever it is, it doesn't stop the attack. And that's all he's thinking is, I just want it to stop now before anybody else gets hurt. And for me, it was just stop because you're just suffering. You know, and it's like, oh, you must care about animals. No, I don't care about animals. But it's just, there's no reason for the stupid thing to suffer. And so that could be part of it, but it also, I think there is some that has to do with training, and maybe some people that just, they don't really know what they're doing. They're not really equipped mentally, emotionally, whatever the word is you want to use to do that sort of work. For them it's a job, and I don't think they really thought through the fact that they may actually have to take a life in order to save a life. And yeah, sometimes some things go out the window. Some things do go, and other times you can hold it together and you can use your fundamentals and you can think right. It's different for different people. It's different for different experience. You know, how much experience do you have, stuff like that. But overall, I would count on your average person, law enforcement or not, just emptying the mag, emptying the cylinder, and spray and pray. I mean, how many guys do you see down at the range that are doing spray and pray? They're not practicing marksmanship, right? They're not getting that muscle memory in there, right?
Yeah.
I don't get the range enough to notice because we don't have one, which is the worst. I mean, the police have to go have a place to practice, and they don't have one because their pistols got upgraded to 9mm Glocks, which you can't legally shoot in a hunting area. If the cops go to a hunting area and to practice, they can't do that. They're not allowed to shoot a Glock 17, which they all got upgraded to Glock 17s from the old police chief revolvers. But you can't there's nowhere on the Big Island where they can legally go shoot and practice their target shooting. So what are they supposed to do? Just forget how to shoot completely? I don't know.
I mean, okay, qualifying is one thing. Even if you qualify twice a year, right, that's using your firearm, but it's still not necessarily like IDPA or IPSC or something like that would be better for self-defense kind of, as opposed to just standing there and shooting at a paper target. Now, you can shoot at just a stationary paper target over and over again and build your skill, and that's going to help you somewhat. But you've got to be able to think, and you've got to be able to move, and you've got to be able to keep aware of your environment, and you've got to control your breathing and everything else that's kind of getting a little erratic because you're getting excited, or you're scared crapless, or you just want to become one with the ground. You want to get as short as possible, as quick as possible.
Yeah, I have knowing what a line of sight is and getting out of it of your opponent is not an insignificant thing to do. Can I tell my Yankee Marshall joke now?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can train for these sorts of incidents. You can train for it, and sometimes your training may go out the window. But it's like doing CPR, right? You can take CPR again and again and again and again, and you can go through it for 20 years and never have to do it. And then that one day you have to do it, you suddenly go, oh shit, tilt the chin, pinch the you're just drawing a total blank. It's like, wait a minute, you've taken this class 20 times. How can you not? It's because you never actually did it. You did it on a stupid dummy or whatever. You watched the video. You didn't actually have to do it on a real person that's vomiting in your mouth when you're trying to give them CPR. Okay? So, if they make the training more realistic for these law enforcement officers, I think that'll help them probably more than just going to the range twice a year and qualifying. And the gun that's a pretty nasty gun. I don't think they really care because it's not their own personal weapon. It might be also because they're not gun guys.
What are you referring to?
He's talking about this cop's gun that had crud and dust and stuff down the barrel.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Jared, I think he would have taken better care of it if he was a gun guy, but I also think he would have taken better care of it if it was his own personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, I think I'll tell my Yankee Marshall joke now. So G-Webs is gonna make a new Yankee Marshall patch because he's done so many chats on Gun Channel. So he's gonna make a new Yankee Marshall patch. So he hires an artist to make a portrait of Yankee Marshall, so he can digitize that and make it into some kind of patch or something. And the artist has a problem because the artist needs a picture of Yankee Marshall, and apparently they can't find a picture of Yankee Marshall with his mouth closed. So it's a problem. Anyway, I won't say where I got that, but actually I will. It's part of something else from I was watching the show that I was talking in the pre-chat. I was talking about to Oklahoma Prepper, since you were talking about killing animals and how gross it is, or something about maybe skinning them or processing the meat. But so I was watching the show on, I think, Vice HD on cable, and the name of the show is Balls Deep. And this particular show was about in Arizona. It was just about the life of this lady whose job was she was the top medical examiner in Phoenix. And the first part of the show was about her life. She goes, picks up her kids. Excuse me. She talks about her profession and how it affects her life and stuff like that. And that was interesting. And I like watching it because, but the last part of the show, I had to turn it off. I was too squeamish for it. It was literally an autopsy, and I had no idea what medical examiners do to the cadavers. But they showed everything. I mean, they take out the brain.
You never read an autopsy? Yeah, they weigh it. You never read an autopsy report?
Reading the autopsy report is one thing. Seeing them take out the liver and slice it up into a dozen steak-sized pieces so they could take a sample. I mean,
How do you think they got that information?
I know, but at like the end of the at the end of the procedure, the body was like, it was just a hollowed out canoe. There wasn't anything left. And I was after I was talking to Oklahoma on the pre-chat because it came up because he was talking about medical procedures and stuff. So I was talking about this medical examiner. It's like, because before I went in for open heart surgery, they play this video of what the operation was like, and that all the patients who were going to have this operation had to watch this video. So I was looking straight at the monitor during the whole video, but my brain was just turned off. My eyes were wide open. I didn't take in anything that I was looking straight at. But I guess I was just too squeamish to see I didn't want to know what they were going to do. I was just going to place my faith that in Queens, in the surgeon and the medical team there. But I didn't want to see what they were doing. It's not, I was going to be unconscious when they were doing it. But when I actually saw what the body looked like, I don't know. If I die, I was just thinking, instead of the medical examiner doing something like that to me and hollowing me out completely and turning me into a canoe, I think I would rather just have my corpse thrown into the ocean after they chum the water and a bunch of white sharks show up, so they could just like take one bite and swallow me. And because I don't think I want the medical examiner to do that to me. It's like can't you just respect my corpse and bury me whole? Do you really have to just completely hollow out every? It was like it's basically like they're gutting an animal. They take you open from the crotch to the to all the way up your chest, your sternum and everything, and then they just take everything out. She plays with the heart, bounces like it was a baseball or something, or a football. Then she puts it in a bag, and it's like, I don't know if I want. It was just, it wasn't, because I like. Yes, last night I watched Savage Kingdom. They have a new series, and I like that show because it's nature and animals. One animal hunts another, lions or cheetahs or leopards but it's not ghoulish like the autopsy was. It's nature. The animals do what they do by instinct, what they're instinctively and what their parents their teach them. Like the mama cheetah teaches the little cheetahs, or the mama lion teaches the other lions, its cubs, how to hunt. And they were doing it was natural. It wasn't ghoulish. They killed something and they ate it, but it wasn't ghoulish. It was nature. The autopsy was just way too ghoulish for me to I turned it off because I didn't want to, as soon as I saw that hollowed out body, I was like, why am I watching this? I like the first part of the show was about, her and just her life and her kids and how she deals socially with being the top medical examiner in Phoenix. But when she got actually down to the job, and when they have to like take out the bowels and squeeze out all the fecal matter, and the poor guy who was like the host of the show was like they're wearing masks and everything, but the smell was obviously overwhelming because the guy almost passed out from the smell. and it's just so I don't think all I know is I don't want to talk to any medical examiners. I don't want to know any medical examiners. And I don't want to die because I don't want to be cut open by a medical examiner. I understand the medical examiners are dealing with looking for just, the cause of death, and to make sure that like nobody was killed illegal. It wasn't murder. It was, whatever the cause of death. They're looking for a cause of death and to verify. But like, wow, that's just pretty ghoulishly gruesome the way they do it. And it's like I could see something. I'd rather be eaten by a lion than cut open by a medical examiner after I'm dead. Because it just seems more natural somehow. I don't know. Does that make any sense to you?
I take pleasure in gutting you, boy.
Yeah, I don't think I want to be eaten by a lion. You know, that's pretty ghoulish in itself. So.
Well, it's nature. All right. Well, on that note, well, I think the chopper's coming for our remains. I don't know. Where's my chopper sound effect? A bunch of my sound effects. Oh, I have my how to defend the border sound effect. So we're talking about that. How to defend the southern border. This is what you tell the immigrants when they want to cross the border. Okay. All right, so I think the chopper is coming. If I could find that sound effect. Yeah, here it is. So I haven't figured out how to get the camera to work in Google Chrome. I think it's when Windows did an update a couple months back, if your computer doesn't have a camera or one of the parts wasn't officially approved by Microsoft, and like Dell computer for my laptop, they just put in whatever camera, and Microsoft wasn't approved by Microsoft, so it doesn't see the Windows doesn't see it. So they just basically disconnected every device that wasn't approved by and authorized by Microsoft. So and between that and Google Chrome is the only way I can get the Hangouts to audio to work. So I'll have to, I don't know, unless I buy a new camera that I plug into this thing that was approved by Microsoft. We'll see what kind of improvements I can make for next week. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. Give us a thumbs up. God bless America, and keep up the good fight for freedom, and we'll see you next week.